Hello everybody. So if you don't know who I am and you haven't watched any of my videos, my channel is just about, just inspiration through the trials of my life and how God has changed me and has helped me. My name is Vanessa Todd. If you don't know who I am, check out my videos. So today is going to be a little different. I'm going to give my full testimony. So if you are going to have a problem with this, you might want to turn it off. I will not get into depth. I will not be telling certain events, not because they didn't happen, but because I'm not here to bash anybody. I have forgiven, and God's grace is sufficient. God is great. God is amazing. And you know what? We have to forgive to be forgiven. So there are certain people that I will not be mentioning. Well, I won't be mentioning any names whatsoever. And I will do the best that I can for those of you that don't know me, to know where I come from, who I was in the past, and who I am today. All right, so I don't really have a paper lined out to help me with the order of this, so please hang in there for a minute, and hopefully I can get this done in one video, but it might possibly be two videos. Okay, so as far back as I can remember, age, 4 years old, I, was raised in a home with several siblings. I was raised by somebody that wasn't my mother. My mother was, I see my mom on the weekends, and there was no real mother figure in the household. The woman that I had was abusive to me. She called me names, and nobody was allowed to talk to me. And I had said in a previous video how she would pull my nose, twist my nose, make fun of my nose, type of deal. Being a young kid, this was very, humiliating for me. And I spent most of my time alone because my siblings were not allowed to speak to me. If they were speaking to me, it had to be on her terms and her kids' terms. So there weren't, my siblings weren't allowed to actually come to me and be nice to me on a regular basis. I wasn't allowed to play like normal kids. I spent most of my time by myself or in the corner. Now, the man that raised us was not in the picture most of the time. He worked. And so he really did not know what was going on. Okay, so that is just a little brief description of skimming the surface on that. At age 5 years old, my real mother passed away. She died. She was an alcoholic, and she was walking to a new bar, as far as I'm understanding, and she was heading for another bar, and she got hit by a train. I previously had seen my mom on, every other weekend, and now she is gone. She is gone, and then I have this lady in my life that's abusing me. The house is dysfunctional. There's a lot of kids in the home, and nobody has a real mother figure, and nobody really has a father figure because he's gone working. Thankfully, God bless, the lady decided to move, and I had a new woman come into my life. She treated me more like a daughter, and this was the first time that I actually felt like, this could possibly be, a mother figure. During this time, our household was, like I said, there was a lot of siblings in the home. They're from ages from, 3 years old to, I don't know, high school ages. And so we, our father, the man that raised us, was a pretty strict person. He, basically said, you walk the line. You don't, you're not going to go out and you're not going to be out doing anything. You're not going to be out getting in trouble. And so it was a lot of just walking on eggshells when he was home. Most of us ran to our bedrooms. We were scared. We didn't know if there would be a situation arise that we weren't prepared for. It was, if I say jump, you say how high. That was the type of situation that it was. We weren't really allowed to express who we were as kids. We were not allowed to really, play together and be just a genuine child. This just wasn't basically allowed that way. We tried. When he wasn't around, it was more at peace, but when he came around, he was tired. He spent a lot of time working. He had a lot of kids. He had a lot of responsibility. So there was a lot of frustration that came out, and there was a lot of dysfunctional there was physical abuse in our home. There was mental abuse in our home. And so this was just not an easy situation for any of us, especially for me. Let me see. So as I had gotten older and, here I am, I'm in, grade school, I'm in, going into high school. I took these things that, I wasn't allowed to express at home, and I took them to school. I was a fighter. I fought a lot. There was, if somebody hurt my feelings and I would take it the wrong way, and instead of crying, I would end up having fist fights, a lot of fist fights. I was raised, if someone comes at you, if somebody wants to fight you, you put them in their place so they don't come back for more. That's how I was raised. We were raised, we knew how to fight. We had plenty of siblings to fight with as well, to help us learn how to defend ourselves. It came to a point that, siblings were leaving, and, here I am, I'm older, and I become, a teenager. The home is still, somewhat dysfunctional, like all homes, but ours was just a little bit harder because as a child, as a kid, it's very hard not to not have that love in, to feel that love and to feel that, I can go to my parent, I can talk to my parent. It was more, when I say something, you better do it, or else, there are huge consequences. If I say jump, you say how high. And so I became a rebellious teenager. I, ended up getting, different boyfriends. I ended up, experimenting, just starting to drink alcohol. I started sneaking out of the house. I remember my friends used to, make fun of me and say, my curfew was when the street lights came on. And I'm like, whatever. No, it's not. And then come to find out, guess what? Street lights were coming on, and I had to go home. And so I'm not saying that that was wrong, because obviously the childhood that I was in, the way that I was being raised, I ended up going into a direction that I shouldn't have been. Instead of yelling at your kids, or making fun of them or putting them down, or whatever you want to say that it is. There's different ways. We are aware today that, there's counseling. You can sit your child down and you can get through to them with love. These things were just not practiced in our home. So there was some, things that came up that it just, for me, became just unbearable to live with. So I decided I wanted to leave. I went into foster care. The foster care system was definitely a big change for me. It was hard on me because it just wasn't normality for me. I was going into different homes. These homes were they weren't horrible. They were, actually more functional than where I was coming from, I felt. And when I went into foster care, I had a better outlook on things. I no longer, wanted to go out and drink. I no longer wanted to sneak out of the house. Boys really wasn't a a big thing for me. I really didn't care. I just really wanted to be just genuinely happy and live in a loving home. So, I jumped from a few different foster care homes. Um, uh, we had small problems here and there that led up to me wanting to leave or them wanting me to leave, and I went into a group home for a little bit, which was crazy because um, when I first went in there, the people that the clients or the workers thought that I was actually a worker myself. And I'm like, no, I am not a worker. I'm actually, a patient here, basically. I am a child. And this is about, when I'm 17 years old. Yeah, I think it was about 17 years old. And I didn't have a place, there was no placement for me. And so, yeah, I went to this group home, and one of the nurses and his wife actually wanted to adopt me. I had several situations that people wanted to adopt me. Now, I don't know if they were genuine or not, but I do know that I was just a good, once I left, in my opinion, that bad situation, that dysfunctional home, I just had a better outlook on life. I just wanted to be happy. I didn't want to make bad decisions. So it leads to, now I'm like, 18 years old, and through a foster home that I was in, I meet my husband, my first husband, and things are going great. And I have carried baggage on with me, and from my childhood, and just growing up, trying to figure out who you are. And I carried a lot of depression with me, and I carried a lot of insecurities with me. And, none of us is perfect. I'm not perfect. The man I was married to wasn't perfect. Nobody is. No home is perfect. We all have our own little secrets, dysfunctionality, whatever you want to call it. So, but for the most part, me and my first husband, we were really good friends. We got along pretty great until, there was a time when I turned 21. I was about ready to get married. That's when we were about ready to get married. We were together 4 years before we got married. And I ended up, honestly, I was basically talked into, like, daily, don't get married, don't do this, you're too young, you're only 21 years old, come out and party with us. And I had never experienced that kind of life. So I decided, you know what, I'm canceling my wedding, I'm going to go get my own place. And, we had just bought our first home. And our wedding was already set. Our honeymoon was already almost paid for. We were going to go to Cancun, and here I am. I was, talked into canceling the wedding and leaving him and getting, just living my life. So, and I got cold feet. And, I really did want, I felt like I really wanted to marry him, but then it just came down to, like, you know what, maybe these people are right where I was working at. Maybe these people are right. Maybe I am too young. Maybe, I am only 21 years old. Maybe I need to go to the bars and experience life some. So I spent about 3 months partying. I went and got my own place. Spent about 3 months partying, having, waking up to bad situations and being like, this is not the life that I want. I would rather be with somebody that loves me than being in the bars, waking up depressed. Alcohol is a downer, okay? I'm like, I don't want to live a life like this, making all these bad decisions, just being depressed type of situation. So, he was still waiting for me, and we decided we were going to get back together. And, I'm like, this is the person that I want to be with. This is the person that loves me, for me. And so we decided, yes, we're moving forward, and we are going to get married. And during this process, we decided we were going to have our first baby. So we have our first baby, we get married, and I'm pregnant, and come to find out, around the 20-week mark, when we find out what the gender is, the doctors say, they come to us and they say, your baby you need to go to St. Louis to have him checked out. We go, we get testing done, and they say that he has a diaphragmatic hernia. And so they did genetic testing. It was not from genetic testing, and it is where your diaphragm, which is right here, has a hole in it to where the stomach, liver, and intestines, which is in the bottom, goes up through the diaphragm and goes up into the chest, and that prevented my son's lungs from growing. So St. Louis basically said, you just really need to have an abortion, and because if not, there's going to be a lot of complications that come from this, even if he does make it. So we talked about it like very, very briefly, and the answer was just simply, no, we're not going to do that. So I got online, I started researching things, and I seen that the number one hospital in the world, children's hospital in the world at the time, was in Philadelphia. They specialized in this, and that, the doctors, we went and seen him, and they talked to us and explained he had a 50-50 shot. Well, it came down to it, yes, we relocated from Southern Illinois to Philadelphia. We were staying in Camden, New Jersey, at Ronald McDonald, and trying to do everything we can to make sure that our son can have this surgery so he will live. They said, based on all the measurements, that he had a 50-50 shot of living, and that more than likely he was going to survive. He just wasn't going to be able to survive. If he wasn't going to make it, it'd be about 2 weeks after he was on the machines, after he was alive. When it comes all down to it, at 36 weeks, 6 days, I stopped feeling him move in my belly. We go to the hospital. They decided to do emergency C-section. They said his heart was given out, and so his heart was given out, and they needed to pull him out right now. Okay, so we go in to do that. We go into the procedure of doing that, and we had already planned that he was going to be in the NICU for like 15 months at least. We had already met parents. We had already, went through the NICU and seen the process of what things were going to be like. We had already, assumed that he would have a trach and all this other stuff from acid reflux and other things. So when I'm in the recovery room, I tell my husband, go take pictures of him because I hadn't got to see him yet, and come back and show me. Well, he's gone for a while. I'm not hearing from him, and they start wheeling me to another room. And as they're wheeling me to another room, I look up and I see him walking towards me, and I see the whole team coming at me, and of doctors, and I just see the look on his face, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's just like, and I'm like, and he's just like, I'm like, I already knew, like, he'd have to tell me, like, I already knew, like, he wasn't gonna make it. Like, he was just, like, I didn't know if he was dead. I didn't know if he died. I just knew, like, it just wasn't good. And he was like, he's not gonna make it. And I just, at first I started yelling. I'm like, what do you mean? These doctors said that he was gonna, live, is what was coming out of my mouth. And I just shut up. I just shut up because I knew that it just wasn't, it didn't matter, And so they come to me and they said, we were wrong with the measurements. He's fallen into a 3% category for babies that just won't make it. He was still alive. He lived 3.5 hours, and they asked us if we want to spend the last time that he had alive, with us. And so that was a very special moment for me when they did bring him to me. The nurses were all shocked because he didn't have any response to any of them. But as soon as he was put in my arms and he heard Mommy's voice, he just opened up his eyes and was like, because he knew he was in Mom's arms. And so that was just a very devastating, thing in my life. On top of my mother dying, and I was 5 years old when she died. She was 28. And then I had this woman in my life prior to that, and during that time, that was abusing me, and just not having a parent that, was really there giving love and stuff. So, after my son died, I was just very depressed, and I just really wanted to die, and I really wanted to just be with him. And my husband, he was, going to church. He, decided he just wanted to be happy, and he just wanted to move forward. And So it did cause problems between us to where I just wanted nothing to do with God. And it took about at least close, maybe a year, close to around there, that I was able to actually be able to say my son's name. Because right after I had him, everybody around me named their kids the same thing that I named mine. And it was just like everywhere we went, they were like, Landon, 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 Landon over here. And every time I'm looking and I'm like, that's not my son. And I thought the name was, pretty unique. And then come to find out everybody was naming their son Landon. So, we decided we wanted another child. And I, it was the first time that I actually really prayed. I wasn't saved or anything like that. I didn't know Jesus, but I finally, I felt like I put all my faith into Jesus, thinking that my son was going to live, but I didn't even know the word of God. So it wasn't that I just felt like I just believed that he was going to live. There was nothing there that I was just like praying constantly. I was in the word. There was nothing there showing that. So so we decided we're gonna have another child. We have another, a little girl, and we're happy. We're happy. We're happy we have our child. But there's, life gets in the way, and depression comes in, and we just decided, we were better off as friends. We just decided, there was depression on both sides. Okay, we decided we just wanted different things, and we wanted to go our different ways. Bubby, mommy's talking right now. You're gonna have to stop it for a minute, okay? You're okay. Here you go. There you go. So we decided that we wanted to go our separate ways, and we got divorced. Well, during this time, we were discussing it for about 3 months that we wanted to get divorced, that we just wanted to be friends, and that we'd be better off being friends. And, we started drinking, on the weekends, and, at night we would drink, and we would have, some vodka and orange juice, and we would just discuss how we wanted to move forward with splitting up. And, we got our divorce, and my daughter was living with me, and she's seen her dad on the weekends. And it was soon after I get my DUI. I wrecked my car, and in that I ended up having to lose my job because I had to drive for my job, and I ended up losing my apartment because I couldn't pay for my apartment, and I had to go to a situation that I really didn't, I hadn't been in for many, many years, and the situation was just all out, blown, just chaos, a lot of hurt, a lot of baggage on my side and on their side to where I had to stay at. And that went on for about a year until a door opened for me. Actually, the door really didn't open, but somebody said, you know what, you can come stay with me and we can be roommates. And, I had a job at that time, and I had just got my driver's license back from my DUI, and I took the opportunity. I'm like, I have to get out of here. I'm going to take it. Me and my daughter, we go to this, thinking I'm going to be a roommate and things are going to work out, and it just didn't. It just automatically just did not. And it went from that to just bouncing around from house to house, and until I was able to have the money to gather up money and get my own apartment and stuff. So in the process of having to bounce around from house to house, I decided, I talked to my daughter's dad, my first husband, and we decided, yes, she can stay with him. He had put his life together for a good amount of time. Like, things were just going pretty good for him. He was capable of taking care of her, and I could have her on the weekends or whenever I was available. We just mutually agreed. And when I was able to get on my feet, and I was being more stable to where she could be safe and I could take care of her, that I would always have her. I would get her back, because you're and we just believe your daughters belong with their mothers. And so that's just how things were going for me in my life. And it just seemed like I would give men an opportunity. And, I'd said in a previous video that I needed a man to be a man. I needed a man to be a Christian, or, know God, even though I didn't know God. I needed somebody that had some morals and values. Well, and I said I didn't need somebody to bow down to me. Well, a lot of times, yes, people would bow down to me. They would either give me everything that I wanted, and I'm like, this is just not very attractive or whatever. It really didn't last for very long. Or things were my way because I built up so many walls in my life, being, this independent person that I felt like I needed to be. Like, I wasn't going, like, I felt like I don't need a man. Okay. And basically that's how I presented myself. I don't need you. I have a job. I have my own car. I have my own place. Okay. I don't need you to pay for my dinner. I don't need you to do the tip. I don't need you. Okay. I'm coming to the plate, and I'm showing you, what I can offer. Okay. What you can offer doesn't matter because I don't need you. Now, in my heart is like, I wanted that relationship. I wanted that a man to step up and be like, no, you're not going to pay. I'm going to pay. Like, you're the woman. And I had, a few people in my life that wanted that role. And I guess I made them feel like lower as a man because I didn't allow it. But it wasn't that I wanted to not allow it. It's just I couldn't allow myself. I was raised, you don't ask people for help. You figure it out on your own. And most of the time, and when I asked for help, the answer was no. So it made me feel insecure that I couldn't take care if I couldn't take care of myself. If somebody asked me out on a date and I didn't have the money to cover that dinner, I would tell them no. Now, I might not give them a good reason. I would just say no. So there were just like a lot of walls. And, today's society, a woman feels like you're not a woman unless you're working, and unless, you have, you're taking care of the family. You're working, you're cleaning the house, you're doing everything that you have to do, you're raising your kids on your own. You're not a woman unless you're doing it all. Okay, well, that's not how God created us to be, okay? God actually created the man to be the man to be the household, the man to be the provider, and the woman to be the nurturer, the woman to take care of the home, and the woman to take care of the kids. That's how God created us to be. And it wasn't until I got into this relationship, which I'm getting to, that I started letting these walls down and being who I believe that God wants me to be. So, I am running around from, bar to bar, man to man, house to house, state to state. My life is lost. Anytime I had an opportunity to see my daughter, have my daughter, that's what I did. Anytime that I would get on my feet and have a job and be doing good for myself, I always allowed a man to come into the picture that didn't have a job, that didn't have a car. For some reason, they couldn't get a job because they had a felony, or they had back problems, or, there was always something that they could not put in. They could not be the man that I needed them to be. And me taking them in cut my resources. Next thing I know, I'm allowing them to interfere with my life to where I'm not paying my light bill. I'm not paying my rent. I'm buying alcohol. I'm not, two blind people, that's what scripture says. The blind can't lead the blind. Okay, so now we've got bad situations here. I'm an alcoholic now. They're an alcoholic now, type of deal. This was just continued to go, just continue to where, here I am, I'm, waking up. I've had blackouts. I have realized that, I've been taken advantage of. It came so bad. See, when I first started drinking, when I drank, I was a happy drinker. I was a happy drunk. And as I would drink more, I realized, here I am, I'm blacking out. I've gotten into a fight. I've said things that I normally wouldn't say. Basically, it came down to like we could be having a conversation. The next thing you know, I'm asking who you are because I'm drunk. And now I don't even know who you are. There's a chemical imbalance here, things were just not going so good. It got so bad to where I really, really, really was debating on if I needed to go to a mental hospital. because I was trying to quit drinking. Like, well, not really trying, honestly. Like, I would just pray, like, God help me. But there was just no effort there. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know who God was. I knew I was just praying a lot. And I even had a journal, and I would write to God and say, just help me, help me stop drinking and help me live a better life and help me get through my issues and just send me this. And, send me my soulmate and send me this man that will help me through my issues because I can't do it alone. And I was just at the end of my first marriage, I started dwelling in just like looking up like soulmates and twin flames, and I started getting into numerology and astrology, and I started becoming addicted to it. I started, and I carried this with me throughout these years from 2010 onward. That my first time, like when I'd wake up, I would look up my horoscope, and I would base my day off of that. And then I wouldn't have a good day, and I'm like, my horoscope said this, and I believe this, and this is how things are supposed to go. And they were just like bad spirits. Like, I was letting this move me in just like all the wrong directions, and I was trying to make right decisions, but every time I'd make a decision, it was the wrong decision. It would put me in a bad situation. And it came to a point to where I had just, I'd gotten rid of all of my furniture. I basically had nothing. It came down to, you would lose my jobs because my attitude, like I couldn't handle like the attitude of people would come at me and just give me attitude and just be rude. And I was always a good worker where I have been. I've always put 100% in. And I've always been complimented on my work because I am a strong, I'm a strong woman, more than most women, and I'm just like, I'm a hustler. I don't mind to sweat. I don't mind to use my muscles, and so that's just how. I was raised by a man, and I had a lot of siblings. That's just how we were raised, and but I, being an alcoholic and not really realizing, I'd go out and drink, and then guess what? I'd call in the next day. I wouldn't go to work, and just a lot of situations to where I was just not doing good. And it just came to a point where I just had nothing, and I burned all my bridges, or people had helped me, and they just, I couldn't get my life together fast enough for them to where they're like, okay, well, now it's time for you to move on. I can't help you no more. And there came a time that I almost even went to a homeless shelter because I had nowhere to go, and here I'm applying for jobs. I can't get a job. I would just apply and apply and apply, and I just couldn't get a job, like, for nothing. And then I finally get a job, and then I have the alcohol problem on top. So anyway, there came a point in my life that I had no option whatsoever. I had nowhere to go, and I ended up grabbing trash bags once again, filling my stuff up, and going